Got it. LeBron is in today's show.
The Fantasy Show is presented by E-Trade. And now, your host, Matthew Berry.
Thank you, Jeff the Fish. We are. They're not ready for E1 players. Coming up today on the show, Week 15 rankings are out, so we've got my frequently asked rankings questions. Mike Clay going to drop by to give you the best wide receiver and cornerback matchups for your playoff game, and some surprising running backs that should start for you. But first, Secret Squirrel, today's show is...
That one's so hard to read, Matthew. I can't read it.
We should think of a different color there. For 3 years, from 2005 to 2007, Aaron Rodgers sat on the bench, watched a guy named Brett play quarterback for the Packers. Rodgers then became a star. And now, for 3 months of 2017, from October to December, Aaron Rodgers sat on the bench and watched a guy named Brett play quarterback for the Packers. And now Rodgers is back and will be a star. Did I just blow your mind with that comparison, Daniel?
I'm sorry, I honestly wasn't even paying attention.
You're not the best in the business for nothing, Daniel. All right, for the few of you who are paying attention, the top quarterback in fantasy football officially announced last night he's been cleared to return by the Packers medical staff. And now, as a member of the ESPN fantasy staff, I am clearing you to put Aaron Rodgers in your starting roster.
Whoa there, Barry.
Oh, hey, Strawman, you have an argument for me?
Yeah, I sure do. Rodgers only said he was cleared to return.
Right.
He didn't say he was the starting quarterback. I'll have you know that Mr. Brett Hundley has won back-to-back games and scored 25 fantasy points last week. He is the star. Aaron Rodgers is now Wally Pip, the original bum.
Yeah, here's the thing. Hundley's 25-point game was against the Browns, right? And he needed overtime to get there.
I did not know that. Erupt the bum.
Look, we've been saying on the show for weeks that you should pick up Aaron Rodgers off the waiver wire. He was available in more than 40% of leagues, but that is now down to 15%. You may have missed the boat, but if you do have him, yeah, you're starting him. I don't care that he's been out since week 6. I don't care that he's on the road to Carolina. He's Aaron freaking Rodgers. You're starting him over everyone this week, not named Wilson, Brady, or Big Ben.
Hey, Matthew, I got you on Rodgers, but what about Jordy? Is he wide receiver 1 now that Aaron is back?
All right, glad to see you're paying attention again.
Well, yeah, I saw Strawman and I was totally invested.
All right, so Jordy Nelson, right? At the time Aaron Rodgers got hurt this year, Jordy Nelson was wide receiver 6. By the way, that's not a fluke. Over the last 5 years, on a per-game basis, Jordy Nelson with Aaron Rodgers averages out to 19.8 fantasy points per game. That is a 41-game sample size, which, by the way, with that average would make him wide receiver 3 this year, behind only Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. First game back, Devontae Adams has been great. So I get not having Nelson as a wide receiver 1, but he's easily a mid-tier wide receiver 2 now that Rodgers is back. Jordy, my wide receiver 16 in my initial ranks for this week.
Hey, by the way there, where do you have Daniel ranked?
He's a co-host 3 with upside.
Erupt the bum.
So Aaron Rodgers is back, and well, that's pretty much all the fantasy-relevant news for the day. So, Secret Squirrel, unless you got anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I think we can wrap up the show. Time for today's reminder to don't be this guy. Oh, hey, Norby. Sorry, everyone, this is my boss, Norby. What's up?
Yeah, you can't just end the show 4 minutes in, kid. As much as I hate this mess, research tells me it rates slightly better than color bars, so you got to finish it up.
Wow, that's good news. That's surprising. All right.
Yeah, why don't you talk about, like the Patriots? They're a team that clicks, my friend. I saw something about them signing some British kid. That's a story. Talk about that.
Got it, boss. Sorry, yeah. Okay, so listen, yesterday the New England Patriots signed Kenny Britt. And well, is my boss gone? All right, good. Look, this doesn't have any fantasy impact. The Britt signing is more evidence that while Bill Belichick is usually emotionless, he does seem to have a soft spot for anything produced by Rutgers University and the Cleveland Browns. Nice depth for the Patriots, but seriously, Britt is nothing more than this year's Michael Floyd. Last year, Floyd played in the last 2 games of the Patriots, had a grand total of 4 catches, 42 yards. He did have a touchdown. And that's frankly all that can realistically be expected of Britt, who's been awful all season with the Browns. Now, going from a losing team and a rookie quarterback to a Super Bowl contender and the greatest quarterback of all time, obviously an upgrade for Britt, but it's the fantasy playoffs. Come on. You're not starting Kenny Britt. I wouldn't even pick up Kenny Britt. Sorry, Sorry, boss. Clickable. Got it. I meant I wouldn't even pick up Kenny Britt, even though he plays for the New England Patriots, who have Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and Brandon Cooks and Chris Hogan and Danny Amendola and Rex Burkhead and Deion Lewis, Julian Edelman on the IR, and they're coached by the great Bill Belichick. All of them big name stars.
Much better.
Back in mid-August, when this show launched, our future-predicting crystal ball puppet spit a hot rhyme that she said would come true and change our lives.
Bitcoin is the cryptocurrency that will make you rich. Doubting my knowledge? I'll cut you.
I did not heed Crystal's words, and thankfully she did not cut me. At least, not yet. But listen, I don't care about fake money. I care about fake football. And back in August, I got players that are worth far more today than some stupid Bitcoin. That's right. I'm talking Kenyon Drake, Jamal Williams, and Alex Collins. Those guys are clearly worth more than any cryptocurrency. Really? You could have cashed out for $10 million in real dollars?
Yeah, you really messed up, Matthew.
Oh, well. Listen, Drake, Williams, and Collins, they're still good, right? That's a nice consolation. And considering all three were widely available on waivers even at midseason, there are teams out there who could have 2 or even 3 of them in addition to the RB1 and 2s they drafted. So who do you play this week among that group of running back crypto superstars? Honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. All 3 are now in the low-end RB1, high-end RB2 discussion. Alex Collins now has back-to-back weeks with more than 20 fantasy points. He's the clear #1 back now with the Ravens, and they get the Browns this week. Collins, a top 10 play for me. Jamal Williams has 20-plus fantasy points in 3 straight weeks. He's clearly the #1 in Green Bay now. He'll be in a Green Bay offense that obviously should be much more efficient with Aaron Rodgers back under center. Panthers, by the way, 20th against the run over the last 4 weeks. Williams, a top 12 running back for me in week 15. And finally, Kenyon Drake, who's been so good lately that regular Drake is probably now his biggest fan. 23-plus fantasy points in back-to-back games. He should get a heavy workload this week at Buffalo, aided by the fact that 4 feet of snow not expected to fall. Now, all 3 of those backs are still somehow available in more than 15% of leagues. See if they are in yours.
Hey, Matthew, how much do you think I can get for all this jet coin?
About 8 cents.
That's more than I thought.
So if you have Travis Kelce or Rob Gronkowski, this segment, not for you.
Yeah, scram, you bums. Make like a spitball and blow out of here.
I get it. I see what you did there, Strawman. Nice job. But yes, listen, if you don't have Kelce or Gronk, you have a question mark at the tight end position. Zach Ertz just lost his quarterback. Will he have as good a connection with Nick Foles as he did with Carson Wentz? Jimmy Graham coming off a 0-point game. Evan Ingram has been boomer bust recently. And those are like tight ends 3 through 5 on the season. It gets even uglier after that. So in times of great stress, I do what I always do, and Secret Squirrel, I turn to you. Are you grabbing a tight end off the waiver wire this week? What are you thinking about if you don't have a quote-unquote stud at the position?
You know, I'm hoping I just don't have to play tight end this week. It is so ugly.
Well, then it's lucky that you lost in our fantasy playoffs.
Oh, hey, you know what? Thanks. I appreciate that, Matthew.
Yeah.
You're a super nice guy. Here's what I'm thinking.
Yes, sir.
If I'm looking at like a dart throw, just someone like I know Cameron Brate didn't play great last time,
Yeah.
but like him and Jameis Winston, he is Winston's red zone target. He's a guy I would definitely look at. And you know, I know Vernon Davis hasn't been on fire lately, but he's the same kind of guy with Kirk Cousins. So one of those 2 guys maybe, hopefully gets in the end zone.
Yeah. I agree with that. Listen, you never go wrong with starting a tight end against the Redskins. So that's Ricky Seals-Jones. You would never go wrong with starting a tight end against the Browns. That's Ben Watson. So they're all sort of touchdown-dependent dart throws. So I would say to you, how lucky do you feel? Go with your heart.
Ask rankings questions, and to help explain the segment, we're going to show them a quick Twitter exchange from yesterday. Okay, Matthew?
Okay, great. Yeah.
So Rob Demovsky tweets out that the news that Aaron Rodgers is returning, and you respond that he's your #4 quarterback this week. And then some guy called Johnny Guillen asks if he should start him over Russell Wilson. And then his friend Dylan, who has Aaron Rodgers as his avatar, responds, if only there were a way for you to look at rankings. And then kudos to Dylan because, you know, he called him out. So can you explain why Johnny's an idiot?
Yes, exactly. Dylan's absolutely right. There's a reason we do rankings so that questions like, should I start him over Russell Wilson, can be answered very clearly. And according to me, no. I have Russell Wilson as a #1 player. He's actually unanimous at #1 this week. You see Rodgers there at 4. But listen, at least 19 points with multiple passing touchdowns in 8 straight games since week 7. He's averaged over 25 points per game, good for the #1 quarterback in fantasy in that span. It would also be the #1 quarterback over every season since 2012, averaging 37 rushing yards per game this year, including at least 40 in 4 different games. As much as I love Aaron Rodgers coming back, you're starting Russell Wilson over him this week. If you're going by my rankings, I have him at #1.
All right, next question comes from Mike. Playoff semifinals this week. Should I start Aaron Rodgers or stick with Jared Goff? I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Look, QB 11 on the season, but since week 7, Jared Goff, QB 4 in fantasy points per game behind only Russell Wilson, Carson Wentz, and Ben Roethlisberger. Seattle just hasn't been as scary with all the injuries piling up since week 11. The Seahawks defense, they're actually ranked 21st in terms of fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. Yes, Goff struggled in week 5, but Seattle won't have Cam Chancellor or Richard Sherman this time around. I have Jared Goff as a top 10 fantasy play this week. So, yeah, QB1 for me. I'm a believer in Jared Goff.
All right, next question we have comes from Brandon. I lost Wentz for the playoffs, but I have Cousins or Jimmy G. Please help me!
Good acting, Secret Squirrel. That was really well done. All right, so let's talk about Kirk Cousins. You know I love him. Please, Washington, I'm begging you, pay this man. Pay him what it takes. But fantasy-wise, he's been under 13 fantasy points in back-to-back games over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging just 10.7 fantasy points per game. Since week 13, he's literally quarterback 25 in fantasy points per game, just 1 spot ahead of Geno Smith. Not his fault. It's the offensive line. There's been so many injuries. The fact of the matter is, the Cardinals defense, they've been better lately. Since week 10, Arizona's defense, top 10 in terms of fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. I have Kirk Cousins outside my top 10 this week. You see him right there at 14. Who's next?
All right, another guy with the same problem. Lost Wentz as a QB for the semifinals. Does he go with Alex Smith or Jimmy Garoppolo as his quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, you see it right there, right? I have Jimmy Garoppolo at 16, Alex Smith at 18. The fact of the matter is the Chargers defense has been really good this year. They've allowed the 3rd fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, and since week 5, only the Ravens have allowed fewer fantasy points than the Bolts to opposing quarterbacks. Yes, Alex Smith had that huge game against the Jets, but he's actually had less than 14 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 around that big game. Some of it was bad luck, obviously, with those drops in Kelsey and the touchdowns getting overturned. But the fact of the matter is, Smith has actually done his damage on the road. He's actually quarterback 17 in terms of fantasy points in home games this season. It's close, but I have Garoppolo just a couple spots higher than Alex Smith due to that Chargers matchup. Who's next?
All right, finally, we've got this guy, Drew, who posted some polls on the Fantasy Life app for his friends, okay?
I love the Fantasy Life app, yep.
First, he asked if he should start Marvin Jones or Mike Evans, and 82% of them said Marvin Jones. And then he asked if he should start Jarvis Landry or Mike Evans, and 91% of them said Jarvis Landry. So finally, he asked if he should start Fantasy Show co-host Daniel Dopp or Mike Evans, and they chose me. So would you choose me over Mike Evans as well, Matthew?
I would not. I would not. I would prefer. That's one of the cool things about the app, by the way, is you can post those polls and get instant feedback. But honestly, for me, Mike Evans, I know he struggled. Look, from week 9 on, Mike Evans, 6 or fewer targets in 3 of his 5 games, averaging just 3.2 catches for 48 yards per game in that span. In fact, since week 9, Evans has scored just 40 fantasy points in 5 games. That total leaves him as wide receiver 61, just 1 spot ahead of Bruce Ellington. For whatever reason, him and Winston just don't seem to be on the same page since he came back. Winston, just 1 of 6 targeting Evans at least 30 yards downfield this year. And you think about those Falcons defense, they've been stingy this year. They're a top 10 defense in terms of fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. I have Mike Evans ranked ahead of you, Secret Squirrel, this week.
What?
But I have Jarvis Landry and Marvin Jones ranked ahead of Evans this week. So to answer the guy on the Fantasy Life app, I would go with Jones and Landry. Coming up next, if you like watching claymation movies during the holidays, then you're going to love our segment with Mike Clay. He'll be here to talk wide receiver cornerback matchups for Week 15, so stay tuned. And as he does every single week, Mike Clay writes an article for us on ESPN.com. Your friend here to talk about the best and worst cornerback and wide receiver matchups in Week 15, a crucial one. We've picked on Devon House a lot in this segment. Are we doing it again?
Oh, of course we are. He's going up against Devin Funchess, who's been wide receiver 7 since they traded Kelvin Benjamin during those 5 weeks. So he has been terrific, and we can expect it to keep going this week against Devon House and against Demarius Randall. Those are the 2 perimeter corners for the Packers right now. And believe it or not, over the past 2 months, no team has allowed more fantasy points to wide receivers and to perimeter receivers than the Green Bay Packers. So fire him up if you got him. I think he's a top 10 play, honestly, this week in fantasy.
Yeah, Funchess should be great, and it didn't seem like the shoulder was bothering him last week, which is also a nice sign. Now, there's a change at quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, but you're not worried about that as it relates to number 17.
Well, the the Giants have allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks over the past 2 months. So that's plenty of opportunity there for Nick Foles to be potentially a top 10 fantasy quarterback this week. And that opens door for a lot of production for his wide receivers. Of course, we know the number one is Alshon Jeffrey, and he's going to be on the outside against this Giants defense that has been lit up by receivers. In fact, they've allowed the 6th most fantasy points to receivers over the past 2 months. Ross Cockrell, maybe Brandon Dixon or Eli Apple on the other side. He's not going to see a lot of Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie because he doesn't line up in the slot very often. So no matter which way you look at it, this is a great matchup for Jeffrey.
So things definitely looking up for Alshon Jeffrey, for Devin Funchess, but guys that might have tougher matchups this week include the best wide receiver in fantasy football.
Yeah, bench Antonio Brown, right? No,
Yes.
never do that.
Do
never,
not do that.
Yeah, we're
By the way,
not saying
you don't even want to be on camera saying that jokingly because somebody's going to cut
Someone's
that
gonna
up
cut
and
that
use
out.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Do not bench Antonio Brown. But listen, as matchups go for him, this is going to be tougher than usual. But at the same time, listen, these teams have played 3 times over the past 2 years.
Right.
His average stat line in those 3 games, 10 targets, 8 catches, 105 yards. Still pretty good. And he was shadowed by Malcolm Butler, of course, in all 3 of those games against the Patriots. But he does only have 1 touchdown during that 3-game span. So I think you downgrade him a little. Maybe you go elsewhere in DFS. But he's going to have it's a tougher matchup than usual. Martavis Bryant against Stephon Gilmore. Keep him out of line. It's a very tough matchup. And actually, Juju Smith-Schuster has a good matchup. No team has allowed more fantasy points to the slot than the Patriots this year, so he's good to use this week.
There you go. So maybe a little sleeper there in Juju Smith-Schuster. Can't wait to see that game. All right, so we talked about change of quarterback with the Eagles, but that's also going on with the Jets and Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, makes him really tough, especially coming off a rough game against Denver. He went into a tough matchup. I know that McCown missed a chunk of that game, but at the same time, he was getting shut down by Aqib Talib, saw little Chris Harris. It was a tough matchup. And this week, not as tough, right, against the New Orleans, but they've still been very good. 7th fewest fantasy points to receivers over the past 2 months, and that was with Marshawn Lattimore and Ken Crawley missing some time. They're the top 2 perimeter corners for this team. They're both having terrific seasons. So Lattimore did shadow Julio Jones last week. I don't know if he'll shadow Robbie Anderson. It doesn't really matter. Overall, this defense has played well. They have Bryce Petty, not Josh McCown. It's really tough for Anderson. I hate to say it, he's been so good the past couple of months. I try to give him.
And there was a connection between Petty and Anderson towards the end of last year, so there was that. If you want to hang your hat on something,
so risky.
But yes, he's certainly a risky wide receiver 3 this week. Thank you, Mike Clay. You can check out the rest of his article on ESPN.com. But it's time now for Make History, presented by Jim Beam. Only 4 players have active streaks of 20 points in at least 3 straight games, right? 3 aren't missing. But check out Packers running Jamal Williams with at least 20 points, 3 straight games. He might see even room to run now that Aaron Rodgers is back under center.
The Fantasy Show is presented by E-Trade, the original place to invest online.
Star Wars.
Love.
Love.
Love it.
Really love.
I love Star Wars. Huge Star Wars fan. If you don't like Star Wars, we're probably not friends.
Adults dressing like a Star Wars character to see the movie.
I like wearing football jerseys, so I can't say anything. We'll go love there.
Hate it. I love it.
Hate it?
Wearing a grown man's jersey, less cool. Wearing Star Wars stuff, more cool.
R2-D2.
Oh, my inner me. I love R2D2. I mean, he's so cute, right?
Love R2D2.
Love it. Love R2-D2.
Love.
Love.
Oh, love.
C-3PO.
I sort of love C-3PO.
Love.
I hate too much complaining.
Love it.
I love him too, even though he's totally annoying.
BB-8.
Oh, big BB-8 fan.
I love you, te amo. Love.
Hate, because I'm old school.
Jedis.
I want to be one.
Love the Jedi.
Love it. I love the Jedi.
Also love.
Love.
Love the Jedi, too. They seem like a good warrior tribe.
The Dark Side.
Hate.
You gotta have both sides, just like a football game, right? You got bad and good. Love it.
Hate.
Kind of love it.
Love.
I actually kind of love the dark side, too.
I don't love the dark side, but there are times that I love the dark side.
Time for our daily reminder to don't be this guy. Today's video was sent in by Eric Trent, the last place finisher in his league. Secret Squirrel had to eat an entire lemon.
Yikes. Yikes.
At like a bar or something. I don't know where they are. Like,
Did they peel it first?
no. Like he's got an entire lemon, includes the skin, dude.
Ugh. You know what they say when life gives you lemons? Hang your stupid sunglasses from your t-shirt.
Is that what they say?
I think I've heard that before.